we are touching the cup at 9,650. So 9,650 is definitely not going to work. Okay. We'd have to grind out a fair amount of the cup for a 9,650 to work. So something like a 9,650 would never work. Well, guys, when we found this, we were hoping for it to be a long-term rig. But unfortunately, with the current housing rates, interest rates, and all the rest of that, I think we're going to have to let it go to be able to get into a house with a small shop that's a little bit better located for all this racing stuff and a little bit better place to raise a family. If you guys are interested, reach out to us. We have 2 very serious buyers that are interested, but if it does sell, we will be looking for open layout, 48 to 53 foot long gooseneck trailer that we could tow behind the infamous spool bus. Guys, I need something that's 8 foot tall for all the merchandise. That is a 48 to 53 foot long gooseneck trailer with an 8 foot interior height that's budget friendly. Appreciate it, guys. Hustling Horsepower at yahoo.com.
Action.
Action. So, guys, here we are with Straight Gangster. Yes, it does have a little nitrous kit on it. This is probably a solenoid back from, like, I don't know, probably the early 90s or something like that. But, hey, you know, you just do the best you can with what you got, right? So, this is, I guess this will be a little bit of a tech video here, talking about some of the things, just talking about a couple, just a little bit of a tech video, I guess you could say. We'll go over a bunch of little different topics on here in a short period of time. It'll probably be, I don't know, what do you think? Aim for a 10 to 12 minute video? That would be like 24 to 26 minutes.
I was going to say the same exact thing.
So, guys, this right here is not our personal motor. We teamed up with John from ProTech. This is his personal motor, and this thing is a bad piece. I know we've had a little bit of a couple issues with this motor, but I firmly believe it's not the motor's fault. I guess we'll just get into it a little bit deeper. I don't believe it's the motor's fault in any way, shape, or form. This motor is fresh, like 35 passes ago, and it's had no issues in previously. And the only things that have been done are upgrades. But we're going to go through and we'll talk about a couple of things. So this motor right here is not a conventional big block Chevy. This is a KB Olds, also known as essentially a Gen 1 481X. So it's a little bit of an older technology, but this thing will make stupid power. Straight Gangster has the ability to freaking fly with this motor in it. And I think we just need to tackle some oiling issues and stuff like that that are not the motor's fault, I guess you could say, right? So we'll go through and we'll start talking about the differences, quick differences between a big block Chevy, like my personal motor, and this KB Olds. So most apparent things is the size of the cylinder head. All right, this is a billet cylinder head, Alan Johnson billet cylinder head. You can see that it has symmetrical ports on it, symmetrical intake ports. The spacing is the same. These heads flow a lot more than my motor. These heads flow big numbers. I'm not saying it's a $80,000 motor, like the brand new stuff, like the new 481Xs or like the Hemis and stuff like that. But this motor will make plenty of power to compete in the small tire no prep world. I'd love to find someone that could do build a different front end for Straight Gangster, make it a little bit more aerodynamic, so that we could see if we could go, you know, fast with it. But we could run really good with this motor. Plenty fast enough to compete in all the racing that we do currently. So this is also a skirted block. You can't really see it down there, but that means the crankshaft is up inside the block, kind of like an LS motor. It's a skirted block. It has cross bolts on the mains, which really adds a lot of stability to the lower end. So this is a very stout piece. This motor is capable of, with our turbos on it, probably somewhere in the 26 to 2800 horsepower range. John wants us to bring it up there and put it on his hub dyno. You're a goofball.
You can reach.
You're close. Miley's over here doing parkour in the trailer. Don't show him the trailer. It's a mess right now. You didn't clean it up.
We'll zoom in. You got this, girlfriend. Or climb back up.
This is a lash cap right here. We run these just to keep the tip of the valve cleaned up. Make sure the tip of the valve is not going to roll over. So we'll go through here. We'll back this off. What, baby?
I think Nana's outside.
As you can see, we had to modify this deal quite a bit for these billet heads, because quite frankly, they didn't work. So, this is a little bit older technology in this motor. We had to run a lot heavier spring, so that's a triple spring on here. We're just going to go through here, snap this like this. We should be able to put that in there like that. Orientate that guy in here. Guys, you don't have to use this, but you don't have to use the valve spring compressor for this. It just makes it a little bit easier.
It's already set up too. I think it's there.
Okay, there's that there. So now that we got the keepers on there, pop these off. Alrighty guys, in the video I couldn't explain it all that well, so I'm going to try to explain it a little bit better, a little bit more in detail for you guys that aren't overly familiar with what was going on. So as you can see, that side started getting burnt up. So the oil travels out of the lifter and up through this hole here, okay? Comes all the way up and into the rocker. These rockers now have adjusters on them that are a ball instead of a cup. That is because we switched to this style. But to get back to it, normally you have this ball on here, and as this ball is rotating, I guess the pushrod itself doesn't actually rotate, but the rocker rotates over this ball. So the rocker is kind of going like, if you can see that, okay? And when it's rotating like that, you can see that the oil hole goes on one side and on the other side. Switching to this style, okay, the oil is definitely in the center here, but this kind of creates like a bath for the ball to ride in. No matter what angle the rocker is on, it's always inside of this bath here. So the ball, now that these have a ball tip on them, before they used to be a cup, now that they have a ball tip on them, this ball is always going to be inside of that bath. It's kind of like explaining it, kind of like a pretzel stick inside of a cup of oil, right? It's always going to be saturated. No matter what articulation or fulcrum that the rocker is on, this ball is always going to be inside that bath of the pushrod tip. Lay this off to the side. Okay? Gotta make sure the gaps are pretty much symmetrical there. Otherwise, the lash cap won't sit flush in there. So you gotta make sure the lash cap sits flush in there. You can generally feel, you go and twist it a little bit, you can feel. See how there's a gap up there and a gap in the bottom? Sometimes if it's bottomed out on the bottom side, the lash cap won't sit in there flush. But there's that. Okay, so of course, when you're adjusting the valves, exhaust is opening, so that means the pushrod's coming up. Alright, so the exhaust side's coming up. We go through here, and we can put our
It's a good thing that was a magnet.
Our spring checker in here. These are offset push rods in here. Gotta make sure our latch cap's on there, everything's on there. So then these ones are all labeled, so one intake, make sure that's on there like that. So I don't have calipers that are the right size. Okay. Ideally you'd run a 12-inch caliper. But I measured it, put a mark at 5 inches. Right there. Glare's just weird. They're brutal. So we're at 5 inches plus 4,650 is 9,650. So these are the push rods that they use in the SMX motors and stuff like that. It's a 9,615. Sorry, half-inch double taper with a 3/8 cut. Here, it looks like a 9,650 is going to be too long. That would only be 50 thousandths shorter than what we were running here with a dual 5/16 standard pushrod style. But it looks like it's touching the cup at fully open. You can trim 10 thousandths or so out of here if actually need be. But I want to check this. I don't believe, like, we're not going to order them at 9,650 because it's not right. But just as a, what's it called? You know, if we're at a race or something like that and someone has one, we could know if something's going to work out.
So what was the length you had in the first time?
9,650.
And what's this?
9,650. I set this to 9,650. I believe it's going to have to be a little bit shorter than that. But I set this push rod to 9,650 because it is somewhat standard size. The SMX motor uses this push rod that's 9,650. So if we can fit a 9,650 or a 9,650 works, that's probably a little bit more ideal in case we have to go a 9,625. But if a 9,650 clears, worst comes to worst, we know we could overnight something from those guys over there if we're at a race or something like that and something happens, right? But we go through here. $9,650 is going to be a little bit too long, I believe. It looks like the cup at this install height, the cup is really close to touching.
Oh, the back of the rocker, you're saying?
No, the tip of the rocker. Like the ball's not out far enough.
Yeah.
9,650 is going to be too long. So we're going to set this just about like a 20 thousandths lash. It's not going to be overly a positive or noticeable feeler engagement since it's a dummy spring with no weight, like literally no weight on it. But that's about a 20 thousandths lash right there. A lot of times we'll go through and we'll Sharpie mark it. Or mark it with a Sharpie, I should say. The keeper or the tip of the valve. And that will show you the articulation, the sweep on it. So you want it to go, ideally a small swipe, but you want that swipe to be in center of the valve is the most important part, so you don't wipe out the valve guides in there. So we're going to go through here. That's because we got plugs in it. Alright, so right now we're at full extension right now, essentially. We got plenty of clearance on the cup, it appears. Let's open this up. There's actually, I lied. We are touching the cup at 9,650, so 9,650 is definitely not going to work. Okay? We'd have to grind out a fair amount of the cup for a 9,650 to work. So, something like a 9,650 would never work. So, we're going to take probably 50 thousandths out of this deal, approximately.
Oh, down here?
Yeah, we're working.
Well, I didn't know if we were talking.
All right, guys. So we took 50 thousandths out of the rocker adjuster, or 50 thousandths out of the push rod length in the setup here. So 3/24 is about 30 thousandths per thread per turn. Okay, so we're gonna go. That's just information to be had for when you're like doing this stuff and like when you're setting rocker adjustment and stuff like that. Each rotation on the rocker adjustment is about 30 thousandths of lash. So we're gonna set this back to about 20 thousandths or so right there. Okay, we need to make sure we got plenty of clearance We got plenty of clearance here at either side of the rocker. Now we're going to go to full extension. That's just about full extension right there. It looks like we're just barely touching still. The cup is still barely touching the rocker here, so we're gonna have to take a little bit more push rod length out of it. But that's okay because we're on the far side of the rocker. So, go and shut that off. So, guys, with the current length that we have it, you can see at fully open. I don't know if you can see that air gap there. There's a little bit of an air gap in between the rocker body and the cup here. It's probably about 20 thousandths right now, and that's significant. So we're gonna go through here. We also sharpened up the tip of the rocker. So I'm gonna roll this over a couple times, and then we're gonna check and see what the pattern is on the lash cap here.
Lash cap. So I'm gonna roll this over and see how it's arriving on the tip of the rocker.
Hey, you gotta film where we need to film.
I am.
See, you can see this line right here, basically going right through the cross of the oiling hole right there. We left this area blank down here, which is parallel with these bolt holes here, with the fulcrum that the rocker rides on. So that right there is just about perfect. Ideally, the rocker would probably be slightly, or the push rod would be slightly longer to move this line down a little bit. But that sweep right there looks pretty dang good, and it's just on the top side of the oiling hole. If we went a little bit longer, we'd probably eat up our clearance between the cup and the rocker, or the cup and the head there. So I personally feel that's a good compromise to be had, especially when you could go through and you could take 10 thousandths off those rockers there for additional clearance between the head or the body of the rocker itself. But that sweep right there, even though it's hard to see, we'll do it one more time so you guys could maybe see it a little bit easier. But usually like a little bit of paint or something like that. Paint sticks out a little bit more.
Paint marker.
But this right here works pretty well. If we have a paint marker, we'll do it that way for the second term. Well, you guys can see that it's a little bit dirty here. It was a little bit oily, so the paint marker rubbed off a little bit. But the sweep is a little bit large. I think that's mostly due to the oil and stuff like that mixed with paint marker. But you can see it's basically centered on the tip right there. And we have a fair amount of clearance at the top and the bottom. And our rocker bowl sticks out a fair amount for the articulation and adjustment. Now, all mechanical valve train, like this should never change, right? Once you set the valve lash, it should be what it is. Like if valve lash changes, you either have a valve that's stretching, or a cam that's going bad, or a push rod that's bending. But you're not going to bend these push rods unless stuff makes contact. So we're going to go through here, check this one more time. This is right now it's set at 9,575, so it's 125 thousandths shorter than the 9,700s. It's also 125. Our exhaust ended up being 125 thousandths shorter as well. So to me, that verifies John did his homework when he was setting up all the valve lash on this deal. For this motor, with the articulation of the camshaft and the articulation of the rockers and stuff like that, these push rods switching over to the cup style is going to be right around 125 thousandths shorter versus the dual ball end push rods. So we'll probably order up a set of push rods that are 9,575 with the 3/8 cup on the top and the normal 5/16 going into the lifter. But we're going to have to order up 2 lifters here because, you can see that they broke when we broke the push rods, when the push rods popped out of the holes. So it is what it is. Sucks, but have a lot of faith in this motor. It's a very solid piece. It's our motors are pretty good. It's taken us a long time to put our motors together, but have a lot of faith in what this motor's capabilities are, especially with how fast we went on the backside one of our first true backside hits on the deal. So shows a lot of potential for. We're gonna try to make Halloween Havoc. That's in like 4 weeks, and then the pad, and I wouldn't mind leaving Straight Gangster down in the Carolinas or something like that. Maybe run Dig or Die in December. This car's not really built for Dig or Die, but I'm pretty sure we could go just as fast as we went on the airport at Dig or Die with that same chassis setup and stuff like that. And I don't think there's many cars in the country that could touch this on that surface if we can repeat what we did at the airport, because that chassis setup right there and stuff like that is just like, it'll do that 9 out of 10 times. And if we do that with no mechanical failures, we'll still have a pretty good car that could try to get us one good win before the year is up. And I think we'll have a good car for Halloween Havoc, front side and back side deal. And then maybe bring the car down south and leave everything down south over winter for maybe a couple races over winter. So we'll see how this all plays out. If anyone knows, or if anyone's up to the task of building a front end for a Straight Gangster that's not 58 pounds, whether it's a carbon deal or fiberglass probably wouldn't save that much weight, but maybe like a carbon deal or something like that, let me know. Because this front end on Straight Gangster is literally like 58 or 62 pounds, and if we could knock off 60 pounds out of this car, man, this thing's going to be a pretty bad mamma jamma. Appreciate it, guys. That'll be enough for this video, and that's how you go and figure out your valve train. I don't want to say issues. I think it was just shearing the oil off because of the size of the cups and stuff like that. This is 1,100 pounds of open pressure and like 375 pounds of on the seat. So there's a lot of spring pressure on this compared to a lot of other motors. Like I said, it's a little bit older technology with these triple valve springs on it, but it is a very solid piece. We should have no issues with it once we switch over to this style here and do a couple other little changes here, but we'll keep you up to date with all that stuff. Appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you soon.